There's some thought-provoking ideas there, and particularly, I think, on the risk assessment and unifying the way that different parties do that so that we're all seeing the same thing. And obviously, there are government officials and salvos in the audience. So I wondered whether you've got any immediate thoughts or feedback.
Good afternoon, I'm Anandre. My question is, do we have any standardized response time figured out on the basis of risk assessment carried out for similar scenarios? For example, in mid-Atlantic Ocean or in another Arctic region or anywhere we can take, for example, if there is any leakage and the salvage and pollution response operations are being carried out, can we have some standardized format in which we can give the minimum response, optimum response time, which can be as a benchmark, be used by other operators also?
Sorry, the question there was, is there a minimum response time, or
exactly
could we put in place a minimum
right
response time for engaging in these emergencies? I think the question probably has two parts, and I would leave experts from the salvage industry perhaps to be able to talk about the time it might take them to get on site to different incidents. But I could start off by saying that in terms of the response, there is the physical attendance on site, but then there is also a lot of remote assessment work which takes place in the office before anybody is deployed, in order to make sure that the assets that go onto site are correct. And the response time to provide that remote assistance and to make contact with the authorities is really immediate. As soon as there is notification through state authorities or through the ship owners to their various representatives on shore or to their P&I club, then respective experts are brought into play to be able to evaluate the salvage risks, if I may speak to that part, but also to our own side, the pollution risks, and to look at both the oil side and the HNS side and to really determine what is presented before us. And it's really imperative actually to undertake that step, because you don't want to go to the effort of deploying lots and lots of resources a very long way away, and it turns out that they're the wrong resources. So I can say the response part for that remote aspect is immediate, and people will start working on that straight away. The length of time it takes to provide that response really depends upon the situation that you have in hand, the complexity of the dangers presented by the incident, and the complexity of the shoreline and the sensitivities that are around it. But yes, in terms of responding physically, I'm afraid that's not something I can necessarily answer, and I would leave that to Smith Salvage to take the point on that.
Do you want to take that now? Yep.
Okay. Thanks for the question, though. There are a few things to consider when you are talking about response times from a base to the site where the casualty is. And that's first, of course, the availability of assets. But now we are talking about, or David is talking about oil or chemical pollutants. So let's talk about if those pollutants do go into the water, where are they going to go? How far are they going to go before the first response does come back? Now, given that analysis, it's difficult to ascertain and make a pre-planned drawing to say if it's in this location, then it's going to be, then you're going to require these many assets to be there within this time. You cannot do that because currents are moving at all times. You have variable weather factors that you have to take into consideration, not only for the casualty, but also for the assets that are going to come out. What are the conditions they're going to be facing? Can I deploy an oil boom in force 5, force 6 weather, which is a reasonably bad weather? That also plays a part. So every case has to be taken in a very different light based on the weather circumstances, the condition of the vessel that she is, and how fast can we respond, or how easily can we get to the casualty, and with what assets. So that's my take. You cannot, it's very difficult to ascertain for a certain situation requiring a certain benchmark of reaching that casualty. That may not be possible.
Great, thank you.
One point I might quickly add, if I may. For the first time in ITOP's history, at the end of this year, we will be opening a regional office in Singapore, which will give us the opportunity to respond much more quickly in this region, rather than mobilizing from London, as historically we've always done. And so obviously that opens up a new window of emergency response for us, which we're looking forward to very much.
Thanks, David. Yes, we have a question.
Just to add on to this part of the quantification or tangible timing for response, just to add on one thing, we generally insist on to our stakeholders that during their contingency plan, when they are planning, they should have some kind of a operational plan. So this is one very important aspect. If they have an operational plan imbibed in their contingency plan, I think we won't be able to quantify, but then at least it will be the shortest possible time when we can react to any spill. And my question now to David, we have seen many incidents starting from SSL Kolkata, then Diamond, Express Pearl, Wakashi, all these incidents. Do you, during your analysis of these incidents or accidents, do you find there are some gaps in the safety procedures which are supposed to be followed on board, vis-a-vis also the inspections which are supposed to be conducted by the flag state or the port state or the coastal states for that matter?
With regards to ITOP's role in an incident, primarily our focus is with respect to the pollution which occurs outside of it, and that's where we put our focus. We're not involved in the investigation of the causality of an incident. So unfortunately, I'm not able to answer that question. That's not our area of expertise, unfortunately. Sorry, so yes, I don't know if that's due to inspections of vessels and shortcomings with ship operations or whatever. That's outside of our remit.
Okay, thank you, David.
The one question which I have, that ship insurance, that P&I insurance covers that wreckage removal and the pollution control liabilities, civil liabilities. How do the cost of a ship going aground, that is covered? Does it comes to the ship owners or does it comes to the P&I?
Sorry, I didn't get you. Your question is how do the cost of the operation?
Correct. Normally insurers cover the, that P&I club gets the civil liabilities and the wreckage removal part of the ship, if the ship is really wrecked. But if it goes aground, the ship has to come afloat by investing money into it. So does P&I club, that insurers, they come into the picture, or the vessel owner or the charterer, or who comes into the picture for the salvage operation?
That's a good question. That's a commercial question, and it's a good question. I don't know if it's right for this topic or not, but I will give you a bit of insight of how salvage contracts work. In a salvage contract, you have a ship and a ship owner. A salvo has a contract with a ship owner, always. The ship owner is backed by the P&I club and the Hull and Machinery club. And you have cargo on board, of course. So you have cargo interests as well. Now, we take the case of Ever Given as a big example. When the ship owner realizes that the cost of operation is going to be higher and not easily or not easy for them to come out on their own, they declare general average. When they declare general average, the cargo interests come in as well. And that's where everybody pitches in money in the interest of the voyage to continue. So every job, you have different types of contracts, but for us as salvos, we always have a contract with the ship owner. What happens behind is a different dynamics altogether.
I think there's a comeback, sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a chance that if a ship goes aground, the ship owner or charterer or the parties who are responsible simply abandons it? Because you will come into a picture when there is a commercial contract to it. So, in that case, I think the flag state or the port state or the government regulation has to come into the picture, or the IMO regulation. There must be something that if nobody comes for, the ship is orphaned, then who comes into the picture?
I think in the case of India, it's DG Shipping of India that comes into the picture and makes sure that you have to take off the wreck. You just cannot keep it there.
That is for any port regulator, not only DG Shipping.
Yeah, of course, for any port limit, any governmental authority who is in charge of that location has to come into effect. So if the ship owner decides or goes absconding for that matter, there is no P&I club or no hull and machinery that you can find for that vessel, then of course it has to be the authorities that take charge of that vessel.
Thank you. Actually, basically, why I raise this, because the ship owning itself is into the such kind of, you won't be able to trace a ship owner altogether. There are ships in the water like this. Means orphaning the ship will be a better choice for them than getting a salvage or getting the wreck removal or getting into the pollution control liability. So that's a more comfortable way, ditch the ship and simply vanish.
Sure, I can. In the interest of everybody, I think we can discuss this topic outside. We have a booth on the other side. I will be there, so please come and see me there. No issues. Richard.
Yeah, I think that's the best way, because that could be an extended conversation. So
Sure.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? We have one over here, please. And then we'll let you off the hook, Hemant.
Sir, my question, sir, actually, when this ever forward ship has sunk after the berthing or during berthing or after unloading the consignment there, if it has sunk after the unloading on the port, since the load has reduced, it should not have sunk actually. Or is it that there is a fault developed in the ship because of which it has sunk? And also the luggage, the containers which are placed on the ship, there is absolutely no gap between. So are there any regulations on how the containers should be loaded onto the ship? Because in that kind of situation, salvaging becomes a problem because there is no gap. And any incident happens, it can spread fast to one to other because of the close proximity of the containers. So are there any regulations? And what exactly is the reason that it got sunk? That's all my queries.
Did you get that?
Of course, container ship has evolved over the years, 50 years that I just showed you. There have been regulations, there have been developments on how you want to store containers, keep containers. You've got to maximize your stowing capacity on board the ships. That's a taken. So yes, you will not have spaces to move around when the ship is operational. At the same time, when things do go wrong, you will have to find your way. I was on the field going on ships to ships as a salvor as well. And one of the things that I was asked not to do when I go into casualty is never ask them what happened. So we are only finding solutions for the clients. And those solutions may entail a lot of things that we have to do from time to time, ingenious things from time to time. But again, regulations is something beyond us. We can always work with competent authorities to tell them where our challenges lie. But at this time, we don't really entertain or we don't talk to them, and nobody has approached us asking us our feedback. Yeah?
Thank you. I think we'll draw things to a close now. I thought with two speakers that maybe we'd have a shorter session, but actually we've more than filled it because it's clearly been very interactive, and we've got a rich vein of thinking and discussions on the topic. So, Hemant, thank you very much.
Oil Spill India 2022 is dedicated to the Honourable Prime Minister's Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and Clean Seas.